side-by-side mud bog drag racing action, but they are running against the clock. And this is one of the wildest machines ever built. Earlier, Margot had a chance to talk to the driver of the Mud Shark.
Mike Erdely and his car, the Mud Shark, without a doubt, one of the most spectacular acts on the mud bog circuit today. But along with being spectacular, sometimes being airborne is a problem with you, Mike. What have you done to correct that?
Well, we've tightened the suspension up in order to keep the car in contact with the track better, and I think that'll help quite a bit this evening.
Well, with the suspension dialed in and a motor that we know runs good, this gentleman could be a real contender tonight.
And this is Mike Erdely's pride and joy, a 1964 Corvette with a blown and alcohol-injected 454 Chevy engine, custom molded from Mike's personal 64 Corvette. His competition, Tom Marsh and the Intruder, a 1923 Ford Model T Roadster.
And the run's about to begin, and it looks like the Mud Shark had a great gate.
Jumping the gun possibly just a little, Margot King. The top two times of this round will go to the final round. Mike Erdely's 1,200 horsepower had a slight advantage over Tom Marsh's 1,000 horsepower engine. The crowd here in the Motor City loves the big block American iron. They love the early Corvettes. And there's Mike Erdely's machine, and what a beautiful car it is.
Notice the tires on the Model T there. And he has opted to use the paddle-type tires that we normally don't see in this type of competition. But even with that advantage, the horsepower in his motor couldn't make the cut.
The Intruder, with a time of 2:78, has a 402 Chevy big block engine, alcohol injected on nitrous oxide. The Mud Shark with a time of 3.63 seconds, but he was penalized 1 second for starting over the line.
And in this game, 1 second puts you out of contention.
So the Mud Shark actually tripped the clocks at 2.63 seconds. That was faster than the Intruder, but that 1 second penalty hurt a lot.
On the far track, we've got the Mud Buster from Waukegan, Illinois. Earlier, Larry had a chance to talk to the driver.
The Mud Buster out of Waukegan, Illinois, and this is Mark Green. Mark, what a short wheelbase machine like the Jeep, and you've extended the wheelbase?
Yeah, I've extended it 24 inches just to make it a little easier to handle in the mud, and hopefully it'll go a little straighter.
What is the hardest thing about mud bogging and driving a mud bogger?
Keeping it straight, keeping it in the track.
Keeping it from going off the track?
Right. It's pretty hard sometimes to keep it going straight.
What happens when you suddenly find yourself going sideways?
Well, if you have to get out of the throttle, you might as well hang it up because it's all over with.
And the drivers are staging now for the next run in front of a near-capacity crowd here in the Silverdome. On track one, Mark Green in the Mud Buster.
And on track two, it's Instant T, driven by Chad Miller from Vandalia, Ohio. He's got a 1927 Ford Roadster with a 509 Rodeck all-aluminum engine.
And that Rodeck engine powers him right down across through the finish line in front. Chad Miller in the Instant T, an excellent showing here. He pulled everything from that 900 horsepower engine and the Power Glide transmission. The car was built by Tom Marsh, who just ran the Intruder. Custom hand-built chrome moly tube frame, being the lightest vehicle here tonight, weighing only 1,900 pounds.
And his choice of tires is interesting. He's got a chevron pattern paddle tire on the front, along with the standard cut groundhogs on the back. A combination that, although it was a bumpy ride, it did seem effective.
With a time of 2.33 seconds. Let's take a look now at the Mud Buster and see what he can do. Slow motion. Boy, that front wheel, those front wheels come up in the air as he launches off the line. 2.9 second clocking. He breaks the 3-second mark.
You can see why these drivers sweat over suspension, because his front shocks are working in that run.
And locking up the front and rear wheels.
Track number one on the right-hand side of the screen appears to be a lot wetter, yet the times don't seem to reflect that pit is tougher to get through at this point. And here comes the time traveler. And earlier, Larry talked to him.
Out of Niles, Michigan, Bud Thompson, the Time Traveler, a 1955 Thunderbird mudbogger. Why a T-Bird mudbogger?
It's the only one around as far as I know.
What kind of an engine?
Chevrolet.
What's the hardest part about driving in the mudbogger?
Concentration, trying to pick the right path to go down. A lot of competition out there, and there's a little bit of luck involved in it, and just a lot of mechanical ability involved in it too. And
is it fun?
yes, definitely.
So here we go. On the far side, the Time Traveler. On the near side, Craig Jones' Lead Sled Jr. That's a 1986 Ford Ranger with a 427 Ford engine using a nitrous fogger system.
And with his weight disadvantage, he'll need more than a fogger system for this run.
Well, you're absolutely right. He's got a very heavy machine there going up against the Thunderbird. They line up. The starter gives them the green flag. The time to beat is 2.33 seconds, and the lead sled goes off and stops almost instantly. And the beautiful T-Bird goes through sideways. The time traveler locks up almost against the wall.
The time traveler made short time of that, and the lead sled lived up to his name.
He is stuck there in the mud. Let's take another look. Now look at the getting off the line, a beautiful start, but only 24 feet 10 inches. And look at that fire coming out of the stack, indicating possibly a fried engine, Margot.
That motor had quite a load to overcome.
3.93 seconds for the time traveler, rocking and rolling through the mud. And then locking up instantly and sliding sideways. It's the dirtiest sport on wheels, mud bog drag racing action. And a lot of these fans are here for the monster trucks. There's Barefoot's biggest fan. And Barefoot and Bigfoot and all the rest are coming up a little later. So don't go away. We'll be right back to the Pontiac Silverdome with more Mud Bog Madness.
Stop here every day.
At 6th Annual Auto Thrill Show Spectacular from the Pontiac Silverdome. We have 4 mud runs to go to qualify for the finals, and the time to beat, the Instant T's 2.33 seconds.
And here comes one of the veterans to the sport. Driving Nitro Express is Clay Langley.
A Nitro Express, a 1932 Austin body with a 393 Chevy engine. On the near side, the Gravedigger, owned by Jeff Tripp, driven by Brian Tripp of South Lyon, Michigan. This is a custom-built Ford buggy with a 351 Ford engine.
Now, it's got a body that doesn't look very aerodynamic, but that doesn't necessarily mean anything in mud bogging.
It looks strange, Margot. It's a strange-looking body, this Gravedigger.
Maybe it's supposed to be like a coffin.
Let's see what happens. They come up and line up on the line. The Gravedigger and the Nitro Express. Nitro Express on the far side, the Gravedigger, the yellow machine on the near side. And the Gravedigger launches out on a beautiful run all the way through the mud, digging a big hole there at the end. And the Nitro Express makes it just a few feet. And there is the Nitro Express, 42 feet and 4 inches.
Say the Gravedigger dug a grave for the Nitro Express, but you can really get a feel for how deep that mud is. Clay's going for the cement floor.
He will not give up. Let's take a slow-mo look at the Gravedigger. Good start, trying to keep up above the mud to skim across the top of the mud. 3.34 seconds for the Gravedigger. Getting a little bit out of shape now, but he keeps the throttle on and launches all the way through the run.
That shorter wheelbase is going to be more difficult to control, but he had a pretty good run.
And now comes the dirtiest job of all, hooking up the tow line to a stuck car in 4 feet of mud to drag him out.
Hey, there's some 10-year-old kids in the stands that would probably pay to have that job.
They've got to drag that muddy machine out. And again, it takes about $30 in quarters to clean one of these at the quarter car wash afterward. And they tow out the Gravedigger, who's already made it through the entire run.
We saw that truck explode a little earlier. That's the lead sled.
It's Craig Jones.
This is Tim Ritchie from Buchanan, Michigan. Now, he comes from quite a racing background. His family owns and operates one of the largest outdoor racetracks in Michigan. And earlier, Larry had a chance to talk to Tim.
Tim Ritchie, learning to fly. What about this nitrous oxide system? How does it work?
Well, it's electrically activated solenoids that run nitrous and gasoline both, inject both them into the intake manifold.
You step on the throttle.
It's got a small micro switch that's in the linkage that activates by another switch so that the nitrous isn't on all the time. Just when you turn that on, it powers the other switch, which then you have nitrous when the thing, which is full throttle.
What happens when the nitrous kicks in?
It boosts about 500 horsepower.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's an E-coupon ride?
Yeah, quite. It's different.
And his competition tonight, the Mud Patrol, driven by Tom Martin from Portage, Indiana. The Mud Patrol is a 1932 fiberglass Ford coupe body with a 541 Chevy engine.
And learning to fly is a 1988 Jeep with a 512 Chrysler engine and 2 850 carburetors, puts out over 900 horsepower, and he's got to beat, or they've got to beat, 2.33 seconds. Coming up on the line, the Mud Patrol, painted in Highway Patrol colors from the 1930s, and learning to fly, launches beautifully and edges out the Mud Patrol at the line. A great run, Margot King.
Learning to Fly got a great start, and that's probably what's going to edge him out of this run.
Mud Patrol almost an equally fast start, but was edged right there at the line. Let's take a look back at it. Here's Tim Ritchie, Buchanan, Michigan. Learning to Fly, a beautiful 1.99 second clocking. That's incredible. The fastest time of the night, 1.99 seconds. Whoa! Rocking and rolling through the traps. The Mud Patrol, a 2.79 clocking, almost a full second slower. And that's it right there, Margot. A slow start, just not launched fast enough.
His wheel starts to spin. He just can't get a bite to get that horsepower of his hooked up to shoot him through the traps.
So the Mud Patrol goes down in defeat and Learning to Fly, a beautiful run. And here is the Great White Hope, Mike Fair, the points leader. A 1927 Roadster with a 548 Chevy engine, alcohol injected with nitrous oxide, putting out 1,400 horsepower.
And on the near side, we've got a 1985 Jeep Scrambler that's driven by 20-year-old Mark Payton. And the name of that vehicle, Rambunctious, from Vandalia, Ohio.
It's one of the youngest drivers in the circuit, 520 Chrysler engine, 1,000 horsepower with nitrous. The Great White Hope weighs only 2,000 pounds, second lightest vehicle out here. Here's the run. Neck and neck, and the Great White Hope pulls out in front. And that was almost close to a record run. Mike Fair has had a lot of experience in mud bogging. He's a points leader in the USHRA Association. This particular class is looking awfully good. Let's see what he looks like getting off the line. 2.69 seconds. Not bad. Not quite fast enough after Ritchie's 1.99.
Mike Fair's also in the business of making race chassis and parts for these mud bog vehicles.
Very intelligent young lad. And gets through there with almost a record clocking. Let's take a look at Rambunctious. 2.77 seconds. Not bad at all for a stock body Jeep.
And remember, he's only 20 years old, a beginner in this sport. He has a nice, clean run.
But not quite fast enough. This is Mike Sneed and Thundering Heart in a custom-built fiberglass funny car from Lakeville, Indiana.
And on the near side, we've got Ed Nikos with Physical Therapy. It's a 1983 Chevy Blazer, alcohol injected with nitrous.
Coming up on the line, staging Mud Bog Drag Racing, a unique American sport. The time to beat, 1.99 seconds, Tim Ritchie. And Physical Therapy Boggs there as Thundering Heart makes his way through. But, oh, and look at that! He blew off his blower filter at the end.
And these stock body trucks are definitely having a tough on this in the inside pit.
They've got the weight, and that's what they've got to overcome, Margo. They are so heavy. Some of them weigh close to 2 tons, and they just don't have the power to stay up above the mud.
And this mud is not very forgiving.
Not at all. He is not giving up. It's the driver's option to keep going as long as he is making forward momentum. As soon as he stops, and he just did, he gets the red flag. And now comes the task of towing out that heavy, heavy truck, made even heavier with an accumulation of mud.
And it looks like this crew's changed their clothes. They're clean again.
You have to use some mighty powerful detergent. Thundering Heart, 4.5 seconds. Let's watch him as he makes his way through that deep, thick Michigan mud, and let's watch that blower filter as it blows off. Gets all the way through, shuts down, and then all of a sudden, kablooey! So the Mud Bog finalists, Learning to Fly against Instant T, but don't go away. Hold on to your seat for this race. Track 1, Tim Ritchie, Buchanan, Michigan, Learning to Fly. Turned a 1.99 second clocking. In track 2, the second fastest of the night, Instant T, Chad Miller, 2.33 seconds, and here we go. And it is, look out, it is Instant T taking home the bacon. And Chad Miller has made it through, and he's gassing it, pulls out, and look at this guy. Look at him. He is excited. He can't believe it. Oh! 1927 Ford Roadster, Vandalia, Ohio. He's waving to the crowd and wins the main event here at the Pontiac Silverdome. Another look at Learning to Fly. Gets sideways right off the line, and Margo, that was it.
Victim of a common hazard of a late run in the night, you drop into a crooked track, and that can ruin your time.
And it did for young Mr. Ritchie of Michigan. learning to fly, did exactly the opposite. He didn't fly and didn't even make it through. Take a look at Instant T. 3.42 seconds, a relatively slow clocking, but a smooth and even run for Chad Miller. Makes it through, and now he's still trying to dig his way out. Now he stops.
Well, at least he had to dig a hole in the right side of the finish line.